As President Trump prepares to board Air Force One for a sweeping diplomatic tour across Asia, the atmosphere surrounding him is already charged with controversy. Within a matter of days, his administration has dominated headlines, stretching from Canada to Venezuela, and not for quiet diplomacy. In Ottawa, trade negotiations with Canada have come to a screeching halt. The reason? A political ad campaign out of Ontario criticizing Trump's tariff policies, a move that enraged the White House and stunned diplomats on both sides. The fallout has left U.S. exporters furious, watching vital trade channels suddenly freeze. Meanwhile, in the Caribbean, American warships have expanded their presence near Venezuelan waters, tightening the pressure on Caracas, just as Trump continues to insist he deserves a Nobel Peace Prize for his global leadership. Back home, things aren't calmer. The government shutdown drags into yet another week, freezing public services and pushing millions of Americans into financial uncertainty. And as all this unfolds, 50 leading economists from top U.S. universities release a rare joint statement condemning Trump's tariff agenda, calling it economically self-destructive. And yet through the noise, Trump remains defiant. He projects confidence, even triumph, as if every crisis were proof that his approach is working. Before takeoff, he stops to talk with reporters aboard Air Force One. What follows is a torrent of unscripted remarks, part optimism, part contradiction, and entirely Trump. The headline moment comes fast. In one breath, he praises his foreign relationships. In the next, he accuses Canada of lying. But before we get there, he returns to a familiar topic, China, the stage on which his presidency has often revolved. Trump tells reporters the upcoming meeting with President Xi Jinping will be, quote, a very good meeting. He repeats it several times, as if repetition itself could make it true. We have a lot to discuss, he adds, including our farmers. They're at 157% tariffs. That's not sustainable for them. Economists later point out that no such figure exists in trade law. But accuracy isn't the point. For Trump, the goal is dominance, to control the narrative through confidence. He insists both sides will need to make concessions but frames the trade war as a test of will, not numbers. The pain it inflicts becomes proof of strength. Our farmers are warriors, he has said before, and on this flight, that message continues. Their hardship isn't failure, it's sacrifice for the nation. Behind the rhetoric, though, the data tells another story. U.S. exports to China have plunged. Soybeans sit unsold in silos. Federal bailouts have become a lifeline for thousands of farmers. Still, Trump reframes the losses as a symbol of patriotism, that enduring American toughness he wants history to remember. To him, tariffs aren't just economic tools, they're weapons. A means of asserting power. I've settled wars because of tariffs, he declares, insisting a president has every right to use them in the name of national security. It's not really about trade policy anymore. It's about image. About proving that America can bend the world through force of will. Then the tone shifts. A reporter brings up Canada, and Trump's composure hardens instantly. Well, Canada lied, he snaps. What they did was terrible. They made up a fake statement by President Reagan. He's referring to that same Ontario ad, the one that used footage of Ronald Reagan criticizing tariffs. Trump insists Reagan actually supported tariffs when necessary, claiming they made America rich. Fact-checkers later show Reagan repeatedly championed free trade. But for Trump, Reagan isn't a historical figure. He's a symbol to be rewritten, a mirror reflecting what Trump wants to see, a tough, unyielding America-first leader. He repeats his earlier claim, I've settled wars because of tariffs. A president has the right to use them, especially for national security. It's the mythology that defines his worldview, trade as warfare, tariffs as ammunition, and victory as the only acceptable outcome. Asked what Canada can do to mend ties, Trump dismisses it outright. I don't think there's much they can do, he says. I'd just as soon leave it the way it is. It's very good for us. To Trump, trade is never cooperation, it's conquest. But beneath the bluster lies something more personal. Trump sees Canada not as a loyal ally, but as a partner that's grown too comfortable. The Ontario ad felt like betrayal, not just political, but symbolic. It used a conservative icon to challenge his core belief that tariffs make America strong. For a man who prizes loyalty above all, that hit deep. His response wasn't calculated. It was instinctive. He lashed out, cutting off talks even though the ad came from a provincial government, not Ottawa itself. The irony? Canada and the US share one of the largest, most interdependent trade relationships on Earth. Over $1 trillion in cross-border commerce every year. But in Trump's telling, partnership sounds like exploitation. They took advantage of us for years, he insists, ignoring the fact that both economies have grown side by side. Still, to his supporters, the story resonates perfectly. It's simple, emotional, and cinematic, an American president standing tall against freeloaders abroad. Yet behind the theatrics, the risks are real. Economists warn the fallout could batter U.S. exporters, especially automakers and farmers already suffering under the weight of tariffs. As Air Force One lifts off, Trump's words echo across both continents, half policy, half performance, and wholly reflective of a presidency built on the idea that conflict itself is proof of control. All right, guys, what's happening inside Trump's latest press session feels less like a policy briefing and more like a performance. Part showmanship, part strategy. For Trump, even potential damage can be rebranded as victory. If we leave it the way it is, it's very good for us, he says, turning short-term leverage into long-term success. Balance doesn't matter. Dominance does. When the questions turn to Japan's new prime minister, Trump instantly switches into salesman mode. I hear great things about her. She was a great friend of Mr. Abe, and he was a great friend of mine. Then, with that signature grin, he adds, she's planning to buy Ford F-150 trucks. She has good taste. That's a hot truck. To Trump, diplomacy and business are one and the same. Friendship is measured not in treaties but in trade, and preferably in American-made products. But behind the charm, Tokyo's growing uneasy. Japan's new leadership is quietly building new partnerships, aware that Washington's mood can change overnight. Trump's fantastic relationship might not be as unshakable as he believes. When asked about other Asian countries, Trump praises Malaysia for helping to calm tensions between Cambodia and Thailand. Then, almost as an afterthought, he adds, I think I owe you a trip. It's a single line, but it captures everything about his approach to foreign policy. Favors traded like business deals, alliances built on personal debt. Then comes Korea, and Trump lights up. If he'd like to meet, I'm open to it, he says about Kim Jong-un. They don't have a lot of telephone service. They've got a lot of nuclear weapons, but not a lot of phones. It's classic Trump, humor layered over high-stakes politics. He insists he has a great relationship with Kim, even boasting, I know everything about them. Pressed on whether he recognizes North Korea as a nuclear power, he admits, they've got a lot of nuclear weapons. For a man who once promised total denuclearization, it's a stunning admission, but very on-brand. Trump's method has always been the same. Redefine success, declare it achieved, and move on. Then comes one of the strangest moments of the session. The story of a mysterious $130 million donation. Asked how troops are being paid during the government shutdown, Trump claims that a great patriot stepped in with a personal contribution. No name, no record, no proof. Just the tale, told with conviction. In Trump's version of events, even chaos proves his leadership, and loyalty runs so deep that billionaires bankroll the military out of devotion to him. When the topic shifts to the shutdown itself, his tone hardens. All we need is 5 Democrats, he repeats. They're lost souls, they are lost souls. The repetition isn't random, it's part of the rhythm. Label the opposition, repeat the phrase, make it stick. His solution sounds simple, just say yes and the shutdown ends. But outside the room, millions are feeling the real pain. Missed paychecks, halted services, and growing anger. Complexity doesn't fit the Trump narrative, so it disappears. The next question, Russia. Asked about the war in Ukraine, Trump projects confidence that few world leaders dare to show. We put very big sanctions on Russia, very biting, he says. They're losing 7,000 people a week. The numbers are inflated, but that's not the point. The exaggeration sells the illusion of control. To Trump, certainty itself is power, even when the facts don't align. On Taiwan, his tone shifts. I hope they won't, he says about a potential Chinese invasion. It would be very dangerous for them. Pressed on whether he'd change U.S. policy, he hesitates. A rare crack in the armor. I don't want to talk about that now. The trip is complicated enough. For once, Trump admits, not everything is under control. Then comes the question about America's farmers. Tariffs have hit them hard, but Trump brushes it off. We're going to subsidize them, he says. We'll give them some money. It's not their fault. He insists ranchers are finally making money again, even though bankruptcies are climbing. But optimism, that's the currency of Trumpism. And he spends it freely. On Venezuela, he pivots to his favorite theme, the border. We stopped all drugs virtually from coming in by sea, he claims. We'll stop them by land very shortly. It's an echo of an earlier briefing, turning Venezuela's chaos into proof of his own global strength. The numbers he gives are impossible. 0 people came in, he says. We used to have millions, now 0. It's the kind of neat, perfect story that only exists in speeches. But for Trump, that's what leadership is. Turning disorder into a story that sounds like victory. And as the questions end, he lifts his tone. We're leading AI, he declares. We're leading China in AI. We're leading everybody. Then the finale. We'll have maybe 21 trillion by the time my first year is up. Nobody's ever had numbers like that. No one knows what those trillions refer to. GDP, investments, or imagination. But it doesn't matter. The story is the product. The image is the success. And that's how Trump operates. Not through policy, but through narrative. Every quote, every exaggeration, every punchline feeds the legend. This story might end here, but the next chapter is up to you. Independent voices like this one survive only because of you. No sponsors, no corporate money, just your support. If you believe truth deserves to be heard, like, share, and subscribe. Because every click, every comment, every voice helps keep real journalism alive. Truth matters. And together, we'll keep telling it.